AEW Full Gear is in 2 days. I'm going to go over my predictions for that card, as well as recap Dynamite and Collision, the 3-hour special that we saw last night. And then I'm going to go over some quick pro wrestling news. All of that here on Screw the Script. Welcome back, everybody, to Screw the Script. I'm your host, as always, Maverick. Thanks for joining me here on this video. The weekend is right around the corner. We just have one more day, everybody, and then it is Full Gear weekend. I'm going to cover my predictions on the entire card later in this video. But first, we're going to go over, I'm going to just recap everything that happened on the Dynamite and Collision 3-hour special that we saw last night. First off, I really like that they do these 3-hour specials, and it really makes me believe that my word is true, that AEW just does pro wrestling shows week to week much better pacing, better wrestling. There's enough storyline. You don't need long drawn out promos. I've said before, they just do it better. This 3-hour show flew by. It goes by fast because I'm having fun. I'm enjoying everything that happens. All the matches were high-flying and had a lot of good action to them. There was a couple that had, some hiccups here and there, which we'll get into in a few moments. Overall, it's just better than the really nauseating, slower than molasses, watching paint dry sort of entertainment that you get with SmackDown. And Raw isn't much better. Raw will have highlights here and there, but it's still not worth sitting down and watching the whole show, which is why I don't watch all of Raw and SmackDown. I don't have Netflix right now. I've been watching both shows exclusively on YouTube. People upload recaps. And it's funny because the SmackDown recaps get condensed down to like 40-ish minutes, somewhere around there typically. And I have a hard time still getting through that. That tells me that SmackDown must be abysmal. I couldn't imagine paying to go see it live. I couldn't even imagine sitting and watching the whole show on a Friday night when I have other things to do other than watch a shitty wrestling product. Right up here, we have the card that happened. And like I said, look at how fucking stacked that was. That is how you put on a 3-hour show, WWE. TKO, take some fucking notes. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 matches in a 3-hour show. Plus you had some promos. It can't get better than that. It had as much wrestling as WWE PLEs have, and it was shorter because most PLEs are about 3 to 4 hours long for WWE, give or take right now. You're not going to see 8 matches and some promos at Survivor Series. I still think that they only have 4 or 5 matches on the card, and I don't think they're going to add more. Maybe one more and we'll have 6, but it's still less than what we got on this special 3-hour episode of Dynamite. You got the Death Riders and Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong. That was a fun match. We saw at the end Kyle O'Reilly made Moxley tap again. And then we saw another match added to Full Gear, which I'll get to in a few minutes. Kyle O'Reilly and Jon Moxley are going to have a no-holds-barred match, I believe it was. So that is good storytelling, progressing Kyle O'Reilly and Moxley's feud right now. You don't need storylines to last for an entire year. It's not a soap opera. It's not a season. That's how WWE, I think, operates, which is fine if that's the product that you like. I personally don't, and I know a lot of you don't as well. I don't need a Bloodline storyline that takes 3 seasons worth, takes longer than waiting for the final season of Stranger Things for the entire storyline to complete. It's just too drawn out over there for my liking. AEW will still have their feuds that progress, have a slow burn. We got some that we'll get to here in a few minutes. So that was good. Sky Flight and the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander actually had my Maverick moment of the night, which is right up here.
We're there. Big time knockout from Top Flight to the
Top Flight, I know I'm probably a little biased because I am from Minnesota originally, and so the Twin Cities metro area, all of that stuff is home to me in a sense. So obviously anybody that's from that area, Julia Hart, to name another, I push for them all the time. I hope that they do well in AEW. They didn't pick up the win, obviously. The Young Bucks and Josh Alexander won. Not only was that my Maverick moment, the whole match and then what happened afterwards was really good too. You saw Kenny Omega return, and then he got jumped. And I know, like I just said a minute ago, AEW doesn't need to have long, drawn-out storylines, but when they do it well, and they don't do it too often, and they don't draw it out too long. You have the Young Bucks right now doing a slow turn. They're going back to faces. It could happen in 2 nights at Full Gear. Maybe they forego winning the huge money that's up for grabs in their match because of how they may potentially win by cheating and having the Don Callis family just keep tearing people down in front of them. I mean, they were reluctant to do anything last week to Jack Perry and Luchasaurus, and the same thing happened last night with Kenny Omega. 2 years ago, they came out at Full Gear, the 3 of them. Is history going to repeat itself? That is good storytelling. Lashley and Ricochet had one fucking banger of a match. Those two, I would watch 5 more matches between the 2 of them and not get bored. We saw Bobby Lashley win, and then we saw Shelton Benjamin win against Speedball. This match before the show happened was actually the match I was most excited for, and like I said at the beginning of this video, there was a couple hiccups on this show. AEW is not perfect. There was a weird botch at the end of this match that was otherwise a solid match for a regular episode of Dynamite, but the referee just completely fucking botched it with that awful no count, kind of similar to the one that we saw on SmackDown a couple months ago or something like that. It wasn't good. The match itself was good, but Benjamin and Lashley is all I took away from those 2 matches. They're going to go one-on-one against each other to start that gauntlet match, so that should be very interesting. We saw the double Jeopardy match. I'll get that out of the way as well. Had some botches in it. It looks like Mascara Dorada just wanted to do things that I don't think clicked well with Okada, just the size difference. Okada's got a lanky, awkward body almost, in a sense. So these two just they could have done a lot better with this match. Again, it was still a good match. It wasn't a bad match, but it had some botches in it. Okada does come out on top, so now he gets to challenge for Dorada's championship, so that was a good match. This next match was a lot of fun too. I mean, the women's match there. Toni Storm and Mina picks up the win against Rio and Alex Windsor. I knew Rio and Windsor weren't going to go far. It was kind of just a tag team thrown together last second. I know some people will complain about the other tag match in a moment here, saying that most of these teams are just thrown together last second. I don't fully agree with that. Tony and Mina have had their partnership for a while. They just haven't officially wrestled together, but they're friends in the locker room, backstage. It makes sense for them to be a tag team. They pick up the win and they move on. Then we got Ty J lost to Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir, which I was expecting that as well. And that's where people are kind of upset about that. I've seen where they picked Ty J to make it all the way to the finals at least, because they're the only long-standing tag team, it looks like, in this tournament. But that's, again, I don't fully agree with that. Megan Bayne and Marina move on. You had Shibata and Adam Page winning that match. The dig that he had on Samoa Joe was hilarious. Mentioning back to his days on commentary on Raw, I thought that was brilliant. It was hilarious to get under the skin of Samoa Joe. And then you saw Red Velvet and Mercedes have a really good single women's match. Mercedes did win the match. She's got more belts than I can count on my fingers, and almost at this point, a full set of toes on my foot. It was a great show. Now getting on to Full Gear. What a fucking card do we have? Right up here, here's the card. I mean, look at that. That is stacked. You're not going to see a card like that in any wrestling promotion these days. This is better than TNA. I don't get why people are saying TNA is the number 2 promotion. Obviously, it's a lot of WWE stands that want to keep putting that down our throats, saying that they are. But considering their next pay-per-view, they only sold like 600 or 700 tickets. Clearly, it's not. Even with the help, even with the crutch of WWE under their armpit, they aren't number 2. They're not even number 3. I think New Japan Strong is technically better. But look at that card. Great card. And real quick, I just want to shout out the graphics team in AEW. Just never misses. I mean, quickly, I'll go through a few right up here. Look at those. Those are really good graphics for matches that we're going to see at Full Gear. They do a fantastic job with these match graphics for pay-per-views. So we're going to start from the bottom, and I'm going to go through these pretty quick, except for the championship matches, starting with the Tailgate Brawl. I see the Acclaimed winning this because slow burn storytelling again. They're eventually going to get back together. I think it's just meant to be. They tried their singles run. Max Caster was able to get over with his chant and everything and the funny gimmick, but Anthony Bones just hasn't been able to, so those two getting back together I think is just the smartest idea. I see them winning. I really don't care about this next match, but we've got the Shopco guy versus Trent. We got RPG Vice. I'm going to pick RPG Vice to win that. Then I'm going to pick the trio to beat Okada and Takeshita and Hechicero in the next match, because Takeshita and Okada are going to have a moment where they just fall apart in the match, and it's going to cost them the match. And we are definitely going to see that fucking feud, baby. We are going to see Okada and Takeshita probably at Revolution, like I've said before, for that unified title. Make it happen, Tony Khan. The Casino Gauntlet, I'll go over that quick next. That's a toss-up. We could see the likes of Jay White, MJF, and guys like that return. I think it would be really cool to see Bobby Lashley win it all, starting at number 1. So I'm just going to lock it in right now. I think that would be awesome. I want Bobby Lashley to win. Then we got the announced four-way tag match from Dynamite last night. The winner of this match gets to pick the stipulation of their match in the semifinals, or whatever it is. I forget where we're at right now with the tournament, but either way, very interesting stipulation by Tony Khan for that match. Since I won't be to win it all, I think I'm going to pick Megan Bain and Marina Shafir to win that, and they will pick a stipulation. It could go anywhere with this, honestly. Then we got Brodito versus FTR. This one's tough because I don't know how much longer Brodito is going to hold on to those titles. I love them as a tag team, though. I have this weird hunch where FTR wins, and then we have another heel tag team hold the belts for a bit while a new face tag team eventually challenges them, which could be the Young Bucks when they turn face. It could be a returning Edge when he's done filming all the stuff. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage could team up one last time and challenge FTR and win those belts, going back to the feud that they had with Adam Copeland. That could be a really good idea. My gut's telling me that Brodito is just going to retain. Then we got Darby Allin versus Pac. That should be a fun match. It's interesting that this is one of the matches that doesn't have a stipulation. I find that kind of odd. But with the Death Riders being so busy at Full Gear, I don't necessarily really see them taking advantage of this match and costing Darby Allin this match. So I'm going to pick Darby Allin here. Kyle O'Reilly versus Jon Moxley. I'm going Jon Moxley on this. However, if Moxley loses this, he is 100% getting kicked out of the Death Riders. There is no way that if he loses one-on-one against Kyle O'Reilly, will they ever have his back going forward. But again, going with my gut, going with Jon Moxley. Then we got the $1 million match. Again, what I said earlier, slow burn. I think the Young Bucks are going to, instead of take the money, take the high road when it comes to friendship, because I think at some point Kenny Omega is going to get jumped by the Don Callis family. And the Young Bucks aren't going to want to win that way. They're not going to side with Don Callis. They're going to help Kenny Omega out. I see that kind of going down. Or maybe they do still win and then all that stuff happens after the match. It could be that. But I think you can't give the Young Bucks both the money and the arc of friendship first. So I'm going to pick Kenny Omega and Jurassic Express to win. Then we got Fletcher and Briscoe. This is a very interesting match and honestly could go either way. Will Kyle Fletcher become the longest reigning TNT champ with the most defenses, I believe? Not the longest reigning. I think most defenses, I think is what it is. Or is Briscoe going to win his first singles belt? Either outcome is going to be monumental for AEW going forward. But to think of Mark Briscoe joining the Don Callis family if he doesn't win this match is very, very interesting storytelling. I would rather see that. I'm picking Kyle Fletcher to win this. And then we're going to see Mark Briscoe kind of suffer for a while working with the Don Callis family. Then we got Monet and Chris Statlander. You can't give Monet every single fucking belt, so I'm going Chris Statlander here. I think it's going to be a really good match, but I think Statlander is going to get under Monet's skin and beat her for the belt and say, you could have all those belts, mine is the most important, and I beat you. And that could further push their feud. And then lastly, you got Hangman versus Samoa Joe. I mean, you got to go Hangman here. I don't think that he's going to lose his belt after a third match with Samoa Joe. You can't just keep having these matches with Samoa Joe and just have him drop the belt when he just won it a few months back. I think Hangman's going to keep that belt for a very long time, probably at least until Revolution in a few months at minimum. So I'm going Hangman there. So yeah, this pay-per-view is going to be a lot better than anything that we've seen WWE do with PLEs and their shows on Raw and SmackDown. Like I've said before, all they are is cheap pop returns and things like that. Just, highlight moments, but there's really no solid match from 2025 that I'm going to remember years from now that came out of WWE. I mean, look at this graphic right up here. That is how many times Roman Reigns has returned this year. March, July, September, and November. Again, that's just one man. Then you had Lesnar. You've got all these other returns that keep happening. It's the only thing that WWE can ride on in 2025. It's just returns, maybe some debuts, and just those cheap pop moments that I've talked about before. So Full Gear is not going to be that. It's going to be much more than that. There may be a return or two, but there's also a lot of great matches on that card. And lastly, to tie in the end of this video here, right up here, going more in detail of that Tony Khan interview, he was asked about Killer Kross. He says he hasn't talked to him in years, but he likes him. He said that it would be an interesting conversation and had to clear some stuff that Darby Allin did with him, which I've talked about on this channel. Ariel is pushing hard for Kross and Scarlett. Tony said it would be worth reconnecting. So, are we going to see Killer Kross and Scarlett in AEW ever? Let me know in the comments down below what you think on that. I think if the timing's right, if they truly want to be there, and if they stay there for the remainder of their careers, I think it would be a really good move, because Killer Kross, he is brilliant. I didn't like him for the longest time, but WWE held him back, and that's why. When he got released, when I started watching his content, I had a new viewpoint on him. People can change opinions. Unlike a lot of WWE fans out there that will just die in a grave saying that AEW sucks without ever giving it an actual chance. I gave Killer Kross a chance after he got released by WWE, and I'm glad that I did. He's very intriguing. I think his stuff on the indies has been brilliant. There's actually a match out there with Matt Cardona at House of Glory that happened not too long ago. If you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. Go check it out. That's all I had in this episode of Screw the Script. Let me know down below your thoughts on Collision and Dynamite combined last night, your predictions for Full Gear, and your thoughts on Killer Kross possibly joining AEW. I'm excited for Full Gear. Thanks for watching. As always, this has been Maverick. Have a good Full Gear weekend.
No!